A ballot has been held and I can declare that the Honourable Dominic Perrottet has been elected to the leadership.
Today begins a new chapter for New South Wales.
The deputy position has been awarded to the Honourable Stuart Ayres.
Thank you, Dominic. We live in the best state, in the best country in the world, and together we will make it even better.
A new dawn, a new Perrottet.
Up until now, all our Liberal premiers have been infrastructure premiers, and that will not change with me. But I'll also be a family premier.
One of 12, a father of 6.
Yes, I have family commitments, but that should not disqualify a one from the job.
39-year-old Dominic Perrottet is the youngest New South Wales premier in history. He's also, according to some in his own party, the most conservative premier since World War II.
That's for other people's judgments, but, I think I have served diligently as finance minister and treasurer of the state.
Perrottet opposed same-sex marriage, voted against laws forcing priests to disclose child abuse, and against decriminalising abortion.
The unborn also have human rights.
In 2016, he hailed Donald Trump's election win as a victory for people who've been taken for granted by the elites, posting, "If you stand for free speech, you are not a bigot. If you question man-made climate change, you are not a skeptic. If you support stronger borders, you are not a racist. If you want a plebiscite on same-sex marriage, you are not a homophobe."
I'm very proud of the fact that I have a strong Christian faith. Does that in any way take away my capacity to serve as Premier? Well, I don't think so.
But the new Premier's Christian charity doesn't always extend to his rivals.
Mark McGowan is the Gollum of Australian politics with his little precious, the GST.
Perrottet today warning when it comes to economic reform, like changes to stamp duty and the GST, he's up for a fight.
This is not a kumbaya session. This is about fighting for our state.
A fighting spirit that will, no doubt, come in handy as the state weathers this political crisis at the same time it emerges from a health crisis of pandemic proportions.
Well, 10 News First National Affairs editor Hugh Remington has been following this story and he joins us now. Hugh, becoming Premier in the wake of a political scandal at such a crucial moment in the pandemic is a hell of an inheritance. Is Dominic Perrottet up to the task?
Well, he needs to be, because it is a huge task, quite plainly, to bring the party back together again. They've not only just lost Gladys Berejiklian, but also the Deputy Premier, the National Party leader, John Barilaro, who has announced he's quitting. There are suggestions that there are other front benches are thinking about making for the exit. So it's a pretty important time for him to take over the job. He's just 39 years old. But he's got the gig because he's perceived as being competent. He comes from, in fact, he's the first Premier from the conservative Christian right-wing faction of the New South Wales Liberals. And the moderates who own the numbers have stepped back to let him take this job. And that, I suppose, is a tick of approval when people cross factional lines to put him there.
Well, so we know that Perrottet has opposed same-sex marriage, voted against decriminalising abortion and is also, was against forcing priests to disclose child sex abuse. How big an impact will his conservative views have on the way he leads the state?
Well, Kate, you raise really important points because on those issues, he is well outside the mainstream opinion within New South Wales. So the question is, how much is he going to try to make mainstream New South Wales opinion bend to those conservative Christian values that he holds? The indications from today are that he really won't. And there's a really interesting clue here. There's a voluntary assisted dying bill that is going to be brought before the House. Now, Gladys Berejiklian was kind of umming and ahhing about whether she would allow a conscience vote by MPs. Here's a guy who has said that he will allow a conscience vote. So even though he opposes a voluntary assistance dying bill, he's now making it much more possible that it's actually going to go into law. And the author of the bill, Alex Greenwich, today says he now believes there is a clear path for that bill to become law before Christmas.
Hugh, Gladys had a lot of support in New South Wales. She was much loved. How does Perrottet's level of public support compare at this stage?
Well, he's an unknown quantity, really. He is quick on his feet. He has, as a cameraman pointed out to me today, has a disadvantage of being very tall. And so he has a way of looking as if he's looking down his nose at people as a consequence of the fact the camera's always pointing up at him. And he has a tiny touch of the Scott Morrison, Peter Costello smirk about him on occasion. But look, by and large, people are going to have to make up their own mind. He got off to a good start today. He stressed over and over again he was going to be there for all New South Wales people, and he could win friends with that kind of attitude.
Yeah, but Hugh, have you ever heard a new leader not say that they're there for all of the electorate? Like, just once I would like someone to win an election and say, I only represent a part of it.
Yeah, no, and you're quite right, Waleed. I have never heard any politician, when they've won an election or come by the means by which Dom Perrottet has just come to it, they always want to say that they're for all people. But he, in some ways, carries baggage because he's perceived as being for a somewhat isolated group, the hard Christian right, if you like. And so he needs, if he wants to win people over, to prove what he says, that he's there for all people.
I'm glad they followed with a premier that we can't say their name either. So goodbye, Berejiklian. Hello, Perrottet. Thanks, Hugh.
All the best.
From expert opinions to in-depth analysis and reporting, the Project YouTube brings you the biggest stories from Australia and around the globe. Hit the subscribe button now for news delivered straight to your feed.